Violated, so degraded, the show has just begun. Dominated by all you hated, this will make you ultra numb.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Banish Big Brother. I'm Zach Varnell, and I'm here as always with Elizabeth Melton.
Hello everyone.
And we have another guest this week. We have James Dutton. So we've talked about him on the podcast before. I don't know if you knew that, but...
Oh, celebrity, okay.
So James is a lawyer who has taken on the surveillance state in court multiple times. Recently, he's challenged Georgia's automated school zone speed traps all the way to the state Supreme Court. He's also testified as an expert before the state Senate subcommittee on the same program. He's also a board member of Banish Big Brother, since we are a nonprofit as well as not just a podcast. And his work aligns really well with ours on surveillance, the Fourth Amendment, and privacy broadly. He just told us that he's a speaker at DragonCon this year, so he'll be giving talks on data centers, automated photo enforcement in those school zones, and apparently now on buses too. And, camera-based data collection just broadly. And when you're not in court, James is, a Spalding County Commissioner, and he runs Dutton and Dutton Law Firm in Griffin, Georgia, and a bunch of other stuff. Gamer, maybe going to Beakerline this year. I don't know.
That's right. Yeah, in a couple weeks. Gonna go week-long LARP in the woods. It's gonna be awesome.
Sweet. Well, Elizabeth, feel free to jump in here too, because I know you probably have kept up with James' work even more so. But most recently you were challenging the school zone speed cameras here in Georgia. And on its surface, maybe a lot of people think that sounds like a good idea. Like, yeah, you shouldn't be speeding through school zones. So is there a brief synopsis you can give us and where that ended up?
Certainly. Look, let me tell you, I agree. You shouldn't be speeding in school zones. Don't speed in school zones. Don't be a jerk. It's the same idea to me. You should wear a seatbelt. Are you an idiot? Put your seatbelt on. But the government getting involved in my seatbelt is utterly ridiculous. The only person that could be hurt if I don't wear a seatbelt is me. And so why the government can use the police powers of the state to pull me over with force if I'm not protecting myself, that's my problem. On the other hand,
by a motorcycle cop as well.
Right. It makes less sense. Look at he's got to speed. He's going to do an illegal U-turn to get me, So one dangerous thing doesn't deserve another. That said, when it comes to the school zone, obviously we're dealing with the safety of, school children who, as the father of two young school-age kids, I have to remind them even in parking lots, guys, we're in parking lots. You got to hold a hand like that, stop, look both ways. Most schools in Georgia, most schools in America aren't walkable, right? You can't just walk to school in most places. There are a couple here in Spalding County where you can walk. There were two, in fact, that people, students and, with their parents or without their parents routinely did walk. And those schools had crossing guards at the crossing points. But now that the school zone camera safety system and the for-profit out-of-state corporations that run them are involved, the school zone has decided, well, we don't have to pay crossing guards anymore. We have these cameras. Everyone will slow down. It'll be Shangri-La now that we've got a surveillance state. And so, on the other hand, we know that they're writing. They've literally written hundreds of thousands of these tickets just in Spalding County, where there's only 70,000 people in the 3 years that these have been active here in Spalding County. So we know that no one's slowing down. So even though no one has slowed down, we now have no crossing guards. So the children involved, the children that we're trying to protect, are less safe than they were before the School Zone Safety Act came in. So the law has had the opposite effect. So if for no other reason than that, then the kids are less safe, we should get rid of this. We'll judge it not by its intention, but what actually happens. Let's get rid of it because it didn't work. But is that really the point? Was that really why they put it into practice? If you judge by what they say, the corporations themselves say, no, that wasn't actually why. That's the excuse to put it in. But the reason they put it in was the money. Judge Gary Long from Butts County joined me when we went to the state Senate and testified in front of the state Senate to try to elucidate the situation in their mind. Is that a polite way to put it? That's certainly the most polite way I can come up with. And he said when the for-profit corporations came to him and tried to get him to sign the contract to bring these in, that they spoke to him for over 2 hours in his office about how much money he was going to make and how much revenue they could guarantee him and how the logistics of this would be easy for him to cut the checks and that, for them to get it right back. And look at all this money you can make, and you can spend that money on anything you want. It just goes in your budget. You can buy cars. Look at all the good stuff you can do with the car, and millions of dollars. We guarantee you at least this much money, 7 figures worth of money a year. And after 2 hours of him listening patiently to him, he said, "Guys, I'm going to have to turn you down. I'm going to have to say no." Why? Look at all this money that we can bring you, and all you have to do is sign. You don't have to do anything. We do it all. And he said, "Yeah, you never once said anything about the kids. You never once said, this is how many kids we're going to save. This is how many wrecks we're going to prevent. This is how." You never said anything about that. All you've said is, this is how much revenue you're going to bring in. And he said, that's policing for profit, and I want nothing to do with it. When we were at that Senate committee hearing, those cats came in and spoke. And all they talked about is, look at how much money we've raised for you, and you've been able to buy this, that, and the other for it. They weren't able to say, hey, this is how many kids were being hurt before, and now this is how many kids are being hurt now. See, it's ineffective. They never brought up kids. They never brought up any kind of crash statistics, speed statistics. That it was about money. And so if the intention behind this was to help kids, which that's what they say it was, then it's been an abject failure. But they're not going to end it, because the point wasn't to save kids. The point was to create revenue, and it's been a huge success there.
So we have a fancy schmancy private school here in my town that basically the elite attend. In fact, people have moved to this city for the express purpose of sending their children there. It's such a well-known school. And it's kind of next to a busy road. And without the permission or blessing or even knowledge of the school, our police department and sheriff's department got into a competition, and the police first got the cameras in all the school zones, and the sheriffs were like, well, we want a piece of this too. So they started putting them by all of the private schools, and they put one by this private school. None of these children are walking to school. They're not. They probably have chauffeurs bringing them to school.
They don't even have buses. They're being brought by cars to the school.
That's right.
There's the same thing in Spalding. There's never been an incident of a kid being hurt, killed, injured in a school zone. It's never happened. I've promised everyone I'll buy them lunch, give them $100 if they can give me one example of that ever happening in the history of Spalding, which turned 175 years old this week, or 2 weeks ago. So it's never happened.
Well, we had a lawyer here that was running for office, and he staked out where these cameras are, and he filmed like for days during school hours, and not one child was seen walking to and from that school. But yet they have brought in all kinds of revenue without even the schools asking them to do that.
Well, the crazy part as well is the school doesn't get any of the money.
Right.
The money gets split three ways. Here in Spalding, there's 6 different companies. They have a different split. It's based on the contract, and so your mileage may vary. But here in Spalding, there's 3 people, there's 3 groups that get a slice of the money. It's a $75 fine that gets split between the out-of-state for-profit corporation, in our case, it's Vera Mobility, and the sheriff's department. And the sheriff gets more than half of that. But the Senate bill last year that passed, but still didn't do anything because it was different than the House bill that passed. And so they never reconciled it this past year. So it went nowhere. That bill actually increased the percentage that the for-profit company could make. But as of right now, the sheriff still gets more than half of that 75. The law also allows up to a $25 fee to be added on top of that for the courts to run the administrative part of actually having court. Our state court here, if on a normal year, we just added a second state court judge, but on a normal year, we're going to run somewhere between 7,000 to 10,000 cases, speeding tickets, DUIs, any kind of misdemeanor goes through the state court. If you added just in these speed camera cases, whereas I don't have this year's numbers, but as of last year, we were over 200,000, and that was in year 2. So we're averaging around 100,000 of these cases a year that go to the state court. So that's 10 times what we normally do. And the judge said himself, we have a very sympathetic judge, and frankly, we have a great prosecutor, and we have a great sheriff's deputy. I've gone over sort of the details of our case before, but we know that if we had full trials and depositions and hearings for all of these cases, that we would actually need at least 4 state court judges, if not more than that, to actually handle the workload. And it takes, again, taking off one hat and putting on the other hat, it takes around $2 million a year to stand up a state court, because you got to have a judge, you got to have a prosecutor, you got to have bailiffs, you got to have a court reporter, you got to have a legal assistant, you got to have a second. I mean, it takes a lot of money to stand this up, to say nothing of the courtroom space. So if you look at the $25 fee that you're getting for each one, it's not really enough to do all of those things. So in a lot of ways, if everyone's rights were actually being upheld and you had jury trials and these things, you would actually still be losing money, because again, a for-profit corporation is taking a chunk of it. However, there is another law that's sort of parallel to the school zone law, that the school does get money. And I want to talk about that one. Zach, you brought it up in the intro, and that's the school bus arm videos. Atlanta and several other places already had cameras on their arms. So when the arm deploys, it can video people as they pass illegally. And this is super unsafe. There have been plenty of kids that have been killed when people don't stop for the school bus arms. Most of them aren't like malicious people who are like, oh, dang, school bus, I'm just going to pass it. Most are like, oh, crap, the school bus is passing. And then they swerve. And, if you watch some of the camera footage of kids getting hit in these kind of accidents, that's usually what it is. It's not just people like trying to beat the school bus arm. But most of what the school bus arm tickets are being written for is people in multi-lane roads going past it, or the school bus will be driving 40 miles an hour, all of a sudden stop, throw this arm out, and 6 people go past it, and they go, was that a school bus? But what we've seen, so before the for-profit corporations got involved and started running this program so benevolently, the Atlanta was already using this to write tickets, and police would would be involved, and they used a different system. It wasn't a for-profit. You got your day in court. You got a jury trial if you wanted to. The fine is $1,000 and 6 points on your license, which is the most you can get for any kind of violation. That's going 120 miles an hour. That's you know what I mean? Like, that's the most you can get. Reckless driving is only 4 points. Okay. So a huge deal. And most people who go to court, they go, we'll let you lower this to something that won't give you the points, but you're still going to give us the thousands of dollars in fine. And they go, well, at least I'm not getting points. P.S. Let's watch your video. This is you. This is a full video of you. That's you driving this your car. But hey, we can have a hearing. We can have jurors. They're going to watch this video. It's up to you. Once we passed this second law that went parallel with the school zone law, now a for-profit company does it. And it's not, you don't get a jury trial, and you get a hearing, but it's just like the law itself specifies that the presumption, once they have a picture of your car, the presumption is you did it, aka the burden of proof has shifted to you to prove that you didn't, which alone on its face should be ruled unconstitutional, right? My constitutional protections don't go away just because it's easier or cheaper for you because you don't want to, have a jury trial. But the real issue here is that $1,000 fine that just gets mailed out goes to the schools. So here in Spalding County, again, and I'm sure the two things were unconnected. I would obviously never make any sort of disparity or allusion that they changed the bus routes or the methodology that they used to drop children off or pick them up so as they could write more tickets. Obviously, what kind of inhuman monster would do that? But around the time that they installed these cameras, several bus routes changed.
Holy cow.
It gets bad. It gets real bad. So one of them was so egregious that essentially the biggest intersection in our entire county, in front of the Walmart, where one highway comes into another four-lane highway, and they're all 8 lanes because they got all the turning lanes in different directions, and there's gas stations on each corner and a drive-through bank over here. They used to turn into going to the east, and they'd go through a very small community there and drop the kids off, come back onto the highway on a sort of a back street, and then cross the intersection and go on the west side, turning into an apartment complex, drop the kids off, make this awkward 5-point star turn, and then come back out and continue. Now, for ease of the kids and for efficiency with the bus trap, obviously nothing to do with the cameras, the school bus now stops on the side of the highway going north and lets the kids off into the gas station where cars are driving. They walk through the gas station area and into their neighborhood behind there. Then it takes a left at the big intersection and stops on the side of the highway instead of pulling into the neighborhood and lets the kids off there. At both of these intersections here, it's no longer a divided highway, even though it's divided most everywhere else on both sides. So in both directions, traffic has to stop in every lane, and it never does, because what bus is going to stop at a gas station and throw out its arm? I'm not looking for little, 4 lanes, 6 lanes away for a bus arm to come out. I'm on a highway. What bus arm's coming out on the highway? This is a crazy situation. And so they're writing 5 and 10 of these tickets a day. And the school gets to keep the lion's share of the $1,000 ticket that they write each one. So obviously, the two things are unconnected. Obviously, they didn't change the school routes because they wanted to generate revenue. Obviously, only an inhuman monster would do that. So I would never make any sort of aspersion that would happen. But it certainly happened right about the same time. So
it wouldn't be the first time that something like that has happened. Like, I remember back in the day, I use this example all the time. Chattanooga put up red light cameras, And they also reduced the yellow light time, which is a basic safety feature where if you have longer
Nothing to do
yellow
with
lights,
each other. Those things are totally unconnected. How dare you make explosions that we would ever... Come on, guys.
Yeah. And they jump straight to let's write tickets rather than let's have a longer yellow light or let's have a brief four-way red, things like that. Where if it really was about safety, you don't always straight jump into, oh, let's write some citations.
Yeah, I've seen yellow lights in other countries. I travel the world pretty often with my wife and my family. And I've seen yellow lights in other countries that actually have a countdown timer.
Oh, yeah.
And like the yellow light kind of, so it's like, this is how many seconds you have left. And then I love in Germany how instead of going from red to green, it goes back through yellow and then to green on the way back as well. So now it's like, okay, now you can shift back into gear and go. Anyway, there's a lot of safety features that we're not using that have been proven to improve the survivability of drivers, but they don't create revenue. In fact, they're more expensive for the government. So we haven't really used those, but the ones that are huge multi-million-dollar revenue drivers, boy, let's grab all those and throw them in as fast as we can.
Yeah.
Well, it's my understanding that the way that this works is the danger when you're letting children off of the bus is that they're going to go in front of the bus and cross the street, and the person coming around the bus can't see them, and that's when they're in danger of being hit. So a child that just gets off the bus and stays on that side of the road is not going to be in danger. So if the bus is dropping these children off on this side of the road, turning around and dropping the children off on the other side of the road that live on that side of the road, the whole entire scenario that makes that dangerous is not even happening.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right. The school bus arm, that arm that extends in the front of the bus, that's so that the big engine block, right? The kid has to walk around that arm so the kid isn't so close to the bus that the driver can't see them. That's what that arm is for, to make the kid walk out here so the driver can see them the whole time, so the driver doesn't hit them. That little stop sign stops traffic over here so that if a kid is coming this way and crossing the street, all those cars are stopped. But if I'm opening this door, like a MARTA bus or, a BART bus or any other bus anywhere on the planet, they don't let out passengers to go and cross the street. They let out passengers at the bus stop. And so there are situations where rural roads, 2-lane roads out in the country, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to let you kids out. You're going to cross the street to your house instead of us going miles and miles out of the way. But if there's a highway situation like the one I just described, they're going to let kids out and only walk this way. No kids crossing that highway. That would be suicidal. No kids should cross that highway. And no kids do cross that highway. But all the cars are still required to stop because the bus arm's out. So how dare you make it unsafe for these kids that we now drop off in a gas station parking lot to then walk home? Because no one ever got hurt in a gas station parking lot, right? So
and I think people don't realize that it applies to them if they're 4 or 6 lanes over. It's not
going
really
in the other direction of traffic. Yeah,
they're not jerks like, I'm just going to run this one. They're like, I don't think that applies to me because it's happening way over there, and surely the kids aren't crossing a 4-lane highway.
If you're on a rural 2-lane road and a bus stops and there's all the lights and you're behind it and you go, screw those kids, and you pass it, like, they should take your license. You're an a-hole. Like, what are you doing? But if I go, hey, was that a school bus going the other way, letting kids off at the Amoco back there? Like, I shouldn't be blamed. The bus driver should be blamed. The school system should. Hey, wait a minute. If you know that dozens of people every day are still going to run past this and you claim that that's a safety issue, then stop going there. Do something else. I don't know, what you were doing before, where you didn't have to stop there and it didn't matter how many people drove past you. Again, if the goal was to keep kids safe, we would be doing something different.
And I'm reading that these cameras are AI powered. So I wonder, like, what is the purpose behind that? Because it's like license plate readers and video cameras existed before AI. So, like, what is the role of AI in this?
I can't tell you specifically because I don't know, but I do know. Let's talk about the logistics, and then in those steps, we can sort of conjecture where AI would be used. So let's go back to the school zone. I drive fast through a school zone at 8:30 in the morning. When I'm driving through there's a box and there's all the school zone signs and whatever. Also on the road, the Vera Mobility version has these sort of circles they've screwed into the road, and they're at very specific intervals and they're right where your tire should go. I don't think that those activate the camera, but they might be there sort of like Florida uses the white lines on the road so they can time your car going from one to the other with a helicopter, so they can radio down and be like, the helicopter said you were speeding because it took you this long. It might just be like a frame to frame, hey, if you were going this fast, then you crossed this many of those dots. I'm not exactly sure what they're for. And at the hearing, the officers don't know either. But so I speed past, and I'm going more than 10 miles over the speed limit during the time or any other time. And I go home. There's no flashing light. There's no siren. I can keep going. Then a month or so later, I get a letter in the mail. It'll have, inside the envelope, will have the notice and a business return envelope in case I just want to mail them the check. But when you unfold that, and on the actual envelope itself, it has the seal of the department whose jurisdiction they're in. So if it's the city, then it'll have the City of Griffin's police emblem on there, as though this is coming from them. If it's in the county, it'll have the sheriff's department on there, as though the sheriff is sending you this notice. They're not. This is coming from Vera Mobility, a for-profit out-of-state company. You open up the letter on the inside. At the top of it has the big symbol at the top, the sheriff's department of Spalding County, and it says, and it has the pictures, and here's your tag, and we sent it to your address. You're the registered owner of this, and you were speeding, and this is how fast you were going, and this is all the different ways you can pay. And you got to pay us, and here's the fine amount. Flip it over, and here's all the fine print, and it all just says you can pay, you can pay, you can pay. And then at the very bottom is this, you can click here to, of course, there's no way to click. It's this crazy, you can go to our website and you can, follow these instructions and ask for a hearing and look up your information if you want. And we do this, again, I'm a criminal defense attorney. I've had dozens of these tickets and representing people with these tickets. And you request that hearing. Every single time without fail, they then send you a notice that says, you waited too long. You're out of time. Sorry, you don't get a hearing. You waited too long. You just have to pay it. Now, if I was in civil litigation with you, I'm suing you for some reason, and you say, I don't think I owe you any money. I want to have a hearing. And I sent you notice that had the court and the official looking notice that said, sorry, you don't get a hearing. You just have to pay me. I already won. I would get sanctioned, probably disbarred, and certainly the judge would fine me, throw my case out. You can't do that. You can't do that. In every single one of the cases that I've handled, and again, dozens and dozens, less than 100, but dozens and dozens, when you ask for a hearing, they go, you've waited too long. I'm so sorry. And then even if once you've done that, and even if they agree to a hearing or whatever, they send you a second notice. Hey, second notice, you haven't paid this. You got to pay it. Yeah, I asked for a hearing. I'm not going to pay it. I don't think it was me. And then, a few weeks later, they'll send you final notice. You better pay this. I have a hearing. I asked for a hearing. Stop bothering me. And again, every single one of them has that symbol on it. And how many elderly people, how many people that aren't lawyers or that can't afford to be represented by a lawyer? You don't get a public defender on these. You do on the original, like the old Atlanta school bus arms. I get a public defender, get a hearing, and get all my rights. Now that AI-powered for-profit corporations are involved, I don't get a public defender. So I have to hire a lawyer if I want one. But a lawyer is going to cost more than just paying the ticket. So fine, it's not worth it. I don't want to take a day off anyway. I'm just going to pay the ticket. I'm just going to pay the ticket. I'm just going to pay the ticket. Hundreds of thousands of people. When you go to court, and you go, hey, I want a jury trial. I want to go, you don't get any of that. We're running it as an administrative court. So you don't get discovery. You get the video that the for-profit corporation sends to everybody with no certifying documents, with no certificates of authenticity. No one from the corporation has to appear, thus making all of their evidence hearsay. In fact, we discovered in my second case to the Supreme Court that it's 4 deep hearsay within hearsay within hearsay within hearsay. We're on another planet if this would ever come into a real case. When you get there, the judge goes, dude, I'm so sorry. The law says if I have your picture, it's presumed to be you. Now, I've represented churches where the church owns the vehicle. Okay, I've represented, not to call them out, but I've represented local churches, and the ticket is written to the church. It wasn't them. We'll call it Baptist Church, First Baptist Church. Okay, it wasn't them, but and the ticket says First Baptist Church, and you go, officer, do you think the First Baptist Church was driving the car? And they go, no, but somebody was. The First Baptist Church got to pay it. Well, you can't ticket the First Baptist Church for driving, speeding. You got to ticket a driver. Who was driving? We don't know, but they've got to pay. And they go, and the judge goes, yeah, sorry, the law says they got to pay. Wow. I've represented companies with fleet vehicles. Yeah. Sorry, I know that this corporation, that's who the driver is, but yeah, I don't know who was driving, but the corporation's got to pay. At one time, there was a fleet vehicle that we represented that was registered to the company. And so they sent the notice to the company and the owner of the company. And so he showed up and said, I wasn't driving. And one part of the law stipulates that if you can state on the record or under oath on an affidavit that's been notarized and submitted to the court, it wasn't me driving, then they have to throw the ticket out. And he went in and said, I wasn't driving. And they said, but was this owned by your company? Well, yes. Was one of your drivers? Yes. Then you're still ultimately responsible. And they made him pay it. And it was like, that's just not how the law works. That's just not how the law works. But they've carved out this crazy thing that's making them millions of dollars. And so they're letting it work that way. One of the tickets that we had was to Mr. and Mrs. Smith. The car was registered in both of their names. And we went to a hearing and said, okay, who was driving? And they go, we don't know. We don't know, but somebody's got to pay. Well, then who's the ticket to? It's to Mr. and Mrs. Smith. You can't ticket 2 people for the same crime. That's crazy. Apparently you can.
Well, imagine that a murder is committed in a city and it's like, well, somebody committed this murder. We'll just charge everybody. Right.
Yeah. I don't know if it was Professor Plum or Mrs. Peacock, but we're going to arrest them both. And you're both, yep. You're both just guilty, but only one person shot him. Yep. We don't know which one it was, but nah.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that nobody gets put in jail if these aren't paid. You just can't register your vehicle.
Right. The law states repeatedly, nauseatingly repeatedly, that these are not criminal, not criminal, not criminal. I'll, again, anecdotally, our local tax assessor was like, I don't think these are legal. These are ridiculous. Not tax assessor. Look, the registration agent, right? And the law says that if you don't pay your fine on this, then you can't register your vehicle. You can't pay your registration until you pay this. And she said, you can't stop me from collecting somebody's taxes. That's my job. You're interfering with my job. I'm a constitutional officer. You can't tell me not to. I'm doing it. And the state then changed the software that she can use, is allowed to use. And so now at the state level, they can turn off her ability to accept your taxes. And so now, even though she was going, these don't matter at all, pay them or not, I'm going to accept your taxes and let you register your vehicle. Now Atlanta now says, it changes inside her system and she can't accept your taxes.
And what
So
is their
now
stake? What is their stake in this? Because Atlanta doesn't benefit from
Correct.
local registrations. So obviously there's some connection here. There's some people that are pulling strings and saying, please make this work for us.
I don't think that obviously I don't think any of the money goes to them, at least the government, as an entity. That said, speaking about a totally unrelated topic, obviously that topic that I don't know the answer to and the next topic that I'm talking about are totally separate. About a month after we lost the second time before the state Supreme Court, it was revealed that these corporations were spending hundreds of thousands of dollars, and by now it's certainly in the millions, on lobbying and donating to various politicians, including our Supreme Court justices.
Exactly.
So obviously, those two thoughts are separate. We had to put a period behind the one. I would never say that those two things in any way are related. Only an inhuman monster would make such an assertion, and obviously, I would never do that. But we do know that hundreds of thousands of dollars is going in above board money, right? In direct money, in money that is tracked, and here's disclosures. We also know that these corporations have boards who have board members who, unlike the board of Banish Big Brother, which is a nonprofit fighting against these sort of encroachments that doesn't pay their board members. I think maybe the only benefit we get for being a board member is we have access to one more Discord channel than everyone else on the Banish Big Brother Discord server. These corporations do pay their board members big salaries. And we know that some of the very close relatives, if not wives, of some of the very people that are charged with overseeing and making sure that these programs work in a way that is conducive with our Constitution, that some of their family members, in fact, are on these boards. Obviously, the two things are unconnected. I'm sure doing a bang-up job. Who better to put on these boards than the wife of someone who oversees them, because she's obviously going to know how best to make sure that our constitutional rights are protected, and no one should ever say anything different.
So going back to the AI just for a second, was like maybe the idea there that they're going to try to solve this problem of who is driving with AI facial recognition?
So the camera never gets a picture of your face. It doesn't.
That's nothing another camera can't solve.
So true, more cameras, right? And they could do it. The AI part here is that ticket that comes to us has been looked at. Let's follow it backwards from us receiving it. That ticket has been looked at by a sheriff's deputy, for example, or a police officer, whose job it is to review every single one of them, right? But that list has been shortened by the corporation, probably through AI. There's too many for it not to, too many cameras, too many locations, too many counties, too many states. They're in at least 30 states. For it not to be an AI. But the trick is, just like a flock camera, the camera's always on. It's always scanning 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, summer, holidays, it's on. And so it's getting your information. It's getting anything that's tied to your tag. So your personal information, your date of birth, your address, your tax status. Have you paid your taxes? Your voter ID status, including things like have you voted in primaries and whatnot. That's all attached.
Is that even relevant for that to look up?
Anything that an officer who is running your tag at pulling you over on the side of the road, anything that they can see, that all comes from the same database that this corporation runs automatically every time someone passes it.
So
now,
if I get pulled over, they can see that I voted in like the Republican or the Democratic primary.
That's all attached to that. Now, I don't think that pulls up in the little laptop that the cop has in his dash there. Like, I think he's just pulling up, is there a warrant? You know what I mean?
That just seems like a way to unfairly bias people right away.
Oh, this guy I want to write a ticket to.
Yeah.
Oh, no, this guy votes like I do. I'm going to let this guy slide. Yeah. So again, I don't think it pops up on the cop, but that is tied to that your jury status, your availability, whether you're an organ donor, all that is kind of on that information. And we know because they tipped their hand at the Senate hearing that me and Sheriff Long were at, that they do keep that information, that they can look at it, that it's not just a cloud of metadata that is worthless to them. One of the senators complained and said, hey, I've had constituents complain about XYZ and we're, upset about it. And he kind of took him to task. Hey, what do you think? And the representative from the corporation said, hey, I know you emailed me about this. And so we took the time to look it up. And in our system, that person is only saying this because they received a ticket on this date and this date and this date. Hey, wait a minute. So you were able to know who he was talking about, where he was driving, when he got a ticket, where he was. Oh, I won't tell you the name of the guy, but he lived in this neighborhood. Oh, okay. Well, these are the names of the people that are Republicans that lived in that neighborhood that got tickets and thus called you. So we knew which guy it was, even though you didn't tell us. And here's the information about him. So we don't think it's we just think he's mad because he got tickets.
These people are clueless. They just absolutely are so disconnected from the average person that they just have no clue as to why we are concerned.
Again, if kids were being killed in droves in school zones, and like this was the only thing, and once you put these in, no kid, and we saved the lives of all these kids, like by all means, like you kind of go, okay, like I'm against them, but like we got to do something drastic to like save the, kids are being killed in the dozens, and this has saved all these lives. You go, there's an argument to be made. I would still err on the side of, freedom, but like there's an argument to be made. But that's not the situation. That's not the situation at all. And these, oh no, we destroyed that data. I know you destroyed on your servers, but did you sell it first? Did you sell it to a corporation that you also own that is still categorized? Like the billboards in my town have certainly changed. Are those changing based on preferences that you've been able to data mine out of the people who are driving through? We don't know. And they don't have to tell us. If I called one of my sheriff deputies' friends and I said, hey, I was just sideswiped by somebody who drove off and I got his tag number, but he didn't stop. I want to sue him. Can you run this guy's tag and tell me who he is? And the guy goes, sure, I have access to that system. Let me run that tag for you. It's illegal. He can't do that. You follow me? But if I just happen to drive past a school, the tag gets run. That whole information goes to an out-of-state for-profit corporation that gets to keep that data, do whatever they want with that data. Why? Why are we allowing this? Because how much money we're getting paid. We're straight getting paid.
We were talking about Flock Nova last week, which Flock Nova is basically where they purchase all kinds of data from brokers and they marry that with, so it even on their website shows that you can see everything about a person, even hacked data that is on the dark web.
Right.
The police have access to all of that. And this is not just license plate storage and reading. This is very, very intrusive. And they're being very dishonest about how this is used. And as you mentioned before, they're like, well, we only keep the data this long. Well, they say raw data. If you take that data, if you have a photograph and you alter that photograph, you put a picture or filter on it, or you resize it or whatever, it's no longer raw data. It's like if you have a file.
And I send that picture to my wife and then I delete it off of my phone.
Right.
She still has the picture. Oh, no, I deleted all the stuff, but she still got it. So if we know that they've got company within company, because of course they do. So, this company doesn't have it anymore. Oh, our holding company's got it. But we've deleted all the data. off of our servers, but not off of, so
Yeah.
I might have been one at night, but it wasn't last night,
Yeah, and they act like, well, the police, we only have access to that for 30 days. The police do, but these companies, how long do they have access to it? I mean, forever. That's speculation and conjecture, but yeah, forever, because they're not honest with what they're doing.
That's right. And the trick here, and I was speaking at the Electronic Frontiers event last month at Manuel's Tavern in downtown Atlanta. Downtown Atlanta is the nebulous area that is downtown Atlanta. Right. DC 404. And we, at that event, we were able to, they said, well, what do we do? What can we do? And I said, lawsuits are being won. Your invasion into my privacy, and then you get hacked, and now some bad guys got my data. You should be liable for that. If a police officer uses this to stalk an ex-girlfriend, then the girlfriend should not only be able to sue the police officer and the department and the government who employs them, but also Flock. Hey, you allowed a situation wherein a tool could be used against me. You're liable. This has cost me this much money. You owe me, plus punitive, etc. That, much like the hot coffee case that everyone kind of laughs at, but really actually created good change. That is the way that this changes. When they go, oh crap, we're going to be liable if somebody uses this in a bad way. We better make it impossible for this to use in a bad way, or we're going to be liable.
Well, I wonder if Flock has already gotten that message, because there's this article that says how AI is catching Georgia cops for misusing Flock license cams. And it says Flock Safety told Atlanta First Investigations in April that it launched a new audit assistance tool designed to help agencies identify potentially suspicious searches. A spokesman said the system uses artificial intelligence to flag searches that may be outside their policy and send questionable activity to supervisors for review. And then here's the key. It says Flock has argued that officer firings and arrests demonstrate that internal safeguards and audit features are working. So I think, part of this wave of you see officers getting fired all over the place is them covering themselves a bit. Like, oh, look, we threw some people under the bus. Don't look at us.
Right.
Acknowledging that your system is bad is the first step, right? This is the first of the 12 steps, okay? Like you're a bad guy, admit it. Thank you for admitting that you're a bad guy, that your tool is bad and that you need to fix it. The cops can't fix your source code. You can, and you need to. Again, here in Spalding County, the argument for Flock cameras was extremely strong. We were having 3-4 drive-bys a year. There's only 27,000 people in Griffin. We were having multiple drive-bys. The year 2020, when everyone was locked up in their homes and couldn't leave, we had 25 murders that year. We got to do something. And the sheriff decided, hey, last time I checked, Griffin's inside the county as well. I'm going to enforce the law here. He put in some Flock cameras, and now within an hour of a drive-by, they've got the guy. So since then, I think we've had one drive-by, and they caught them nearly immediately. And they were shocked that they caught him. What? You guys are actually, yeah. So the number of deaths has gone down. There's a great argument for Flock cameras to be used correctly. And again, I just think the world of our sheriff. I think he's a great guy. I think I use this all the time, but even if his own family members were doing wrong, he would arrest them. He would report him to GBI if he needed to. He's not the kind of guy who's going to go, he's not the former sheriff of Clayton County, right? He's he's the sheriff of Spalding, and we appreciate this guy. That said, he's not going to be in office forever, right? Are all of his officers going to do right all the time? We know they're not. He has to fire them occasionally, right? And he does, and I trust him to do so. But in the meantime, hey, they did something wrong. Why did they have the capacity to do something wrong? Why did this for-profit corporation allow and create a system wherein officers could do something like this when they could just change it so you can't?
Yeah.
Well,
That's
And
the weird part.
a broader question, as I'm seeing all of this, is what kind of people are they hiring in the first place? What kinds of people are on police departments that they are using these tools to stalk exes and love interests? There was one who the police officer just met this woman on a set with TV set with some interview, and then he's pulling her over. He's stalking her and pulling her over.
Oh,
And-
hey, I didn't know it was you. You want to go on the
Yeah.
date with me?
Right. And so it's like, what does that have to say about the people that are working in these departments to begin with?
Well, I remember on that one too, he pulled her over and said, "Oh, I was hoping your boyfriend would be with you." It's like, so what? So you could harass him or like find some
So
way
you
to
knew it
arrest
was
him?
you beforehand. And, yeah. It's, it goes back to who watches the Watchmen. I really think that we give police officers and any kind of law enforcement special privileges. We shouldn't, but we just do. Look, I'm a criminal defense attorney, and if I got two strangers in front of me testifying, and one is wearing a cop uniform and the other one goes, no, just believe me, I'm gonna err on the side of that cop's not lying to me, man. Like, I'm gonna trust him. He's swore an oath to uphold the Constitution. Look at the uniform. Any human who says, "Oh no, I'm just gonna weigh them equally," that's make believe. We trust police officers. We're told as kids to run up to police if we need help. That if I'm calling 911, I don't want I want a cop to come. I'm calling someone that I can trust to come and help save and make the situation better. So we put them in these positions of trust, and we have this high expectation that they are someone we can trust, which is why when we learn that we can't trust them, that it's so disappointing, and the punishments should be that much worse. But unfortunately, we see the opposite. We see the punishments being the lightest slaps on the wrist. There were cases where there's multiple counts of sexual battery and all kinds of bad stuff that would put your average man on the street in prison for the rest of their lives. And cops are allowed to plead to one count of violation of oath of office. And you go, where was that when my last guy was getting, charged with this crazy stuff? Can he plead to a little 3-year slap on the wrist? No, then the cop shouldn't either. It really bothers me. Again, just because I'm such a constitutionalist, when there is unfair treatment in the law, when the law specifically carves it out. The distracted driving law is a great example. The distracted driving law, right? You can't have your cell phone on you. If you have your cell phone on you, they can pull you over, even if it's in your lap. Distracted driving, got a big deal. But the law itself specifically exempts law enforcement. They can be talking on their cell phone and the radio and the laptop and driving.
Yeah, it's like if you're wearing,
So,
you're wearing the magic suit, so then you are
thus I'm
miraculously
better
able
than
to
you.
do things that we can't do safely.
Yeah.
I was exposed to a word recently called Floccaganda, which I think that it kind of describes what's going on with all of these police officers getting arrested. That I think that we're hitting the nail on the head here, that this is an effort just to show that, well, see, there's accountability here. There's nothing for y'all to worry about. I think it's kind of having the opposite effect, though, that people are seeing this and it's not doing what they intended for that to do.
When Flock is held accountable for the actions that they facilitate by not correcting their source code, by not creating the item, the camera, the hardware or software the right way, when they're held accountable, then I'll start believing that they'll act in the right way. Until they are held accountable, until they're writing checks for their mistakes, they're not going to correct them. That's just, people respond to incentives, negative incentives and positive incentives. We need to positively incentivize corporations, because it's not just Flock, right? You have Axios and several other corporations. We need to, the corporations that take the steps that we want them to, we need to go to our law enforcement and say, hey, use them instead. Don't use these guys. They're not doing right. Use the good guys. And so they'll have a positive incentive to do the things that we want them to. And we need to go through the courts and make sure that the corporations that aren't doing the right things have a negative incentive hitting their pocketbooks for not doing the right thing. That's how you make the change. Relying on our elected officials, and I'm saying this as one, is probably, again, I went to the Supreme Court twice on these camera tickets, and the first time I lost because they said, oh, this is a constitutional issue, you've got to use a different strategy. And so I came back using the specific strategy they told me to, and they said, oh, you lose because this isn't a constitutional issue. I would love to say the courts can save us. I would love to say our elected officials can save us. But the way to do it is attack pocketbooks.
Well, I wanted to talk about something else too. We spent a lot of time on this, and that's great. But I see also that Spalding County, your county, has had like 3 data centers go in already, and there's another one on the way. And I saw your DragonCon talk mention data centers. So I just wanted to get your take on that. And like, you know, one thing just to preface it is like, it feels odd that a ton of them are going up at once, and nobody is against all data centers, but it seems like they're preparing for a massive expansion of things like Flock and cameras on Waymos and buses, and they're going to need the computing power and the storage power for this much surveillance. And I'm drawing a blank on any other reasons that we might need this much. I don't think it's so that I can vibe code more.
Well, I think that data centers aren't just for AI and aren't just for that kind of stuff. Anything that happens on Facebook goes through a data center, all the pictures and stuff, you know. Is that less than what Gemini is going to use? Yes. I think that most data centers, or at least a good chunk of them, are in California and New York and these places where it's drastically more expensive to have them. And so I don't just think that they are adding to, I think they're also migrating from more expensive places to places where they're getting tax breaks like Georgia. They're getting state level tax breaks to move them here. And so, you know, and California is taxing them to the hilt because California taxes everything to the hilt. So they're moving them here. So it's not just additional bandwidth, as it were. It's you know, replacing current bandwidth. But we also know that the technology inside them lasts, you know, 10 years. I got a gaming PC at home, and every, you know, few years I have to add some new cooler parts to it, and then every 10 years I just get a new one that has, you know, that lets me sort of start over. So they do the same thing with the computers inside these data centers. So Spalding County's finest driving past my office here. So you, when instead of redoing that in a California data center, they just go, hey, when these get obsolete, we're just going to shut this one down and we're going to open one in Georgia where we're getting a tax benefit. So it's not necessarily new bandwidth. There's definitely new bandwidth coming, but I think it's also a lot of replacing a lot of the stuff. That said, the tales of data centers in Spalding County have been drastically exaggerated. There are exactly 0 data centers in Spalding County, none. What has come is a developer has come in and asked for properties inside our industrial corridor to be rezoned to the specific zoning that would allow. There's only one in our. So I say there's one that's specifically for data centers. All data centers must be in this. We have a zoning called PDD, which is sort of like, hey, we're going to do something special in this area, and we're going to carve out specific rules for that. And in that, technically anything can go. It's sort of like Atlanta has like little 5 points. Little 5 points isn't zoned like the rest of Atlanta. It has its own little special subzoning. And so most places have that. And so we have that called PDD. And so in theory, you could put a data center in one of those, but like that's definitely not what it's for. And we're actually looking at changing that so that you can't even put one in that, because it really is for industrial and C1B specifically is what we call it. So they've come and they've asked for that rezoning, and we've approved that 3 times. That said, you got to step back in history. Before we had that zoning, we've got just a fantastic zoning attorney, and he said, hey, the state is about to pass these data center incentives. So before data centers ever started coming, he said, hey, data centers are going to come. We need to be ahead of this. Please pass a moratorium so that we can look into data centers, look into their effects, go to other states that already have them, and see what we need to do to create some rules. So we passed a 6-month moratorium, studied. We got to near the end of it and said, we need some more time. We extended the moratorium for 3 more months. So we had a 9-month moratorium. We traveled to Virginia, to Tennessee, to Texas, all over the state, and really looked into the data centers that were around. We talked to the owners of data centers, the managers of data centers, employees of data centers, people that lived in the neighborhoods near data centers, the populations, the politicians around the data centers. And we said, okay, what are the problems that you're seeing? What's the best way to regulate these things? Give me the science, give me the numbers. And they said, here's the things, like, here's your issues, but here's how you can overcome these issues. One, like, very easy off the top is they use a lot of water. These are water-cooled computers, just like my gaming PC, just like my car. And the cheap way to water cool is you just open a valve on this side, let cold water come in, it cools everything, and then it leaves warm. That's the cheap way to do it because water in Georgia is pretty cheap. You can, however, say, hey, that's ridiculous. You don't get to just dump water. You got to internally recycle that. Just like your car, just like my gaming PC, you fill it up and that's it. It doesn't, it's a closed loop system. And so we require a closed loop system. And we thought that was going to be, a deal breaker. This is going to cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars more. And they were like, yeah, we're putting in a $3.6 billion. Yeah, it cost $100 grand more. That's fine. It didn't bother them at all. Didn't slow them down. And we went, oh, okay. You got to have a 100-foot setback. And next to the road, you got to have a 6-foot dirt berm. And on top of that, you got to have a double row of planted trees that are approved from this list. And it's got to, and they went, yeah, we can do that. That's going to cost maybe $1 million more for your site. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, you're going to have a backup generator outside, and they're really loud. So we don't want the neighbors to hear the backup generator. So we're going to require a 20-foot acoustic dampening wall with acoustic dampening panels on the inside of it around your backup generator. Yeah, okay, no problem. All right. Every time we said, hey, here's this thing. Here, we've got 2 river keepers. We've got the Flint River Keeper and we've got the Altamira River Keeper. So if this goes into any kind of stream, if there's anything on the property, you got to get their buy-in. They have to come and say, here's where they can build on the property and here's where they can't. And every time they've come, we've said, river keepers, and they go, hey, this 30 acres over here of the 500-acre plot they want, that's a wetland. Nothing can intrude on this wetland. They can't have any runoff on the wetland. You go, yep. Okay, figure it out. You guys can't interfere with this wetland at all, period. And they go, yeah, okay, we won't use it. The fourth that came to ask, they had it wasn't a wetland, but it was a pond that sort of fed in downstream to a wetland on the center of the property. And their plan was, we're going to bulldoze this and culvert it and whatever. And, candidly, a lot of these developers do this. They'll call and go, hey, what do you think? And I went, dude, I'm not voting for that. No way. No, you don't get to bulldoze this lake. You can build on the sides, but you can't. The river keepers don't want it. And they went, yeah, we've spoken to everybody else. We don't have the votes. We're not doing it. And they withdrew. Now there's some issues on, did they withdraw properly and timely and whatever, but that's separate. But they knew, Spalding County is not going to give them a variance for this. Yeah. We're just not. I
guess my question is more so though, like, and you said, some of them may just be moving from California, and sure. I get that. But none
have broken ground yet. We don't have any right now. Yeah. We don't expect 3. I do expect 1 to come, but the cost is too high in Spalding County. We require all these things, and we give no local tax breaks. Compare that to Butts County.
Just in general, then, outside of Spalding, because some of them. I mean, I know you can't speak like specifically about things outside of your county. It's outside of your purview, but just what do you see?
Give you my opinion about anything.
Yeah, because like I see, OpenAI is opening a 3.1 gigawatt data center in Effingham County, and there are others that are specifically coming because of AI. And I see this big explosion of data centers being built, and I don't think like the amount of web traffic or anything has just blown up so much that we need new, web servers and stuff like that. But it's AI.
I agree.
And in my county here, I see, the grid being massively expanded, where like this is somebody's front yard now. They're having these gigantic, electricity poles strung up throughout the county, all over, sometimes ruining people's property values, and that stinks.
No, every time ruining people's property values. Every time.
And I see too that, like, back in the day when you went to whatever, 2 Cows or Namecheap or whatever to get your website, it's like, hey, ours run on solar power. So that tells me that, standard data centers didn't require a ton of energy. Like the AI data centers, which are for compute, where it's like you're getting graphics cards or ASICs in there just to spin at maximum speed, and that's requiring these massive upgrades. So I guess my question is, even if everything is ecologically sound, and I've been in data centers that are in city centers and nobody would know they're there, so they're not necessarily always disturbing to their neighbors, but like, why is it that all these are going in? Is it so that we can use ChatGPT for every little thing? Or is it because there's going to be massive amounts of data that needs crunched and surveillance data that needs crunched and things that will more or less be used against us rather than for us?
I think both. And it was funny. Again, if I'm in any way sounding pro data center, let me dissuade you of that. And the truth is, there is some good tax revenue for a local county like ours that used to have a bunch of textile mills and now has very little industry. 93% of all taxes are paid by residents as opposed to industry and commerce and commercial like they should be. And so with having a new industry to come in, for example, just to give you the scale of the impact on a local, and I'll get back to your specific question. My budget this year, the county's budget this year is $73 million. If the third data center that asked to come in and was given a variance to come, or not a variance, given a zoning change to come in with 0 variances to our rules. In fact, it took me 20 minutes to read in all the special rules on top of our rules for their specific sites, just into the record. If they come in, when they're built up, and it takes 5 or 10 years to build they're big things, right? When they're fully built out, they will pay just in county taxes $60 million a year. So that one property will be worth more than all the commercial and all the industrial in our entire county combined. You follow me? And it will use less water than any of our current commercial, like larger scale commercial manufacturings, right? Even though they're all of our manufacturing here is in the only green industrial park in the southeastern United States. So all that said, our rules also prevent the stuff that you just showed, right? High tension power lines cannot be regulated by the locals. Georgia Transmission and Georgia Power are probably second only to God the Father in their power in Georgia. They can do whatever they want, wherever they want. They don't have to. They were building transmission lines here in Spalding County early this year and using dynamite on their site. And us locals didn't know about it until I was sent a video from someone showing the explosions. They don't have to get our permission. They don't even have to notify us. So that said, we have limited where the data centers can go to our industrial strip. There's an industrial corridor down a 4-lane divided highway that connects into 75. That's the only place they can go, period. So there's no, unlike other counties that have been like, oh, you found a great 500-acre site. Yeah. Hey, we're going to have to run power lines through people's backyards. Hey, they shouldn't have moved there. Wait a minute. They're not in an industrial area. There are people that live nearby, and there's always going to be somebody that lives just outside the industrial area. But our industrial area was designated in the 70s. So we've said you can only build these there, and the power already has to be there. So we're not going to do like Fayette County did and run high tension power lines through people's backyards because the wires have already got to be there, and they're already there for the most part in that entire industrial strip. On the same time, the data center that's going in behind Atlanta Motor Speedway has none of these restrictions. So they're running new high tension power lines just across our county. In fact, they're asking, and I think tomorrow night it's coming before our board to approve them taking a chunk of one of our county parks and running their high tension power lines through it. And again, they're offering us, but they don't have to. They can just come in and eminent domain it from us, and we don't get to say no. So, they're running all of that down from Monroe County and up to Henry County for the new data center. Hampton, that gave them the approval, isn't requiring them to use a closed loop system. So they're going to use 5 million gallons of water a day. That's 1.8
warm
billion
back to the source.
And it just dumps it comes in cold and it just dumps hot on this side.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of the rumors about data centers are totally unfounded. Well, what about the lithium that leaches into? Lithium reacts very poorly with water. Lithium will never touch this water. It's in copper pipes and stuff. There's no heavy metals. Somebody at one meeting asked me, what are we going to do about the radiation after? No, they're not nuclear powered. There's some electromagnetic because there's so much electricity. As soon as you turn the electricity off, that goes away. It's not Chernobyl. So a lot of the stuff is, one person came in and said, what about the nitrous oxide that these computers create? And we went, what? Nitrous oxide? Yeah. I saw it online. He's creating nitrous oxide. These create laughing gas? Laughing gas is going to be a byproduct?
Working in IT would be a lot more fun.
Right? I was like, dude, what are you talking about? I saw it on Facebook. It must be true. So we do know that China wants the data centers, and if we don't get them, they're going to get them, and it's sort of a race to get them. And to quote a Meta employee that works for the Meta data center and goes around and I won't even say which department that they worked in. When we asked them, man, you're building these data centers, it's AI, and the threat that AI poses to humanity in general, how do you square that? And he said, dude, I worked for this job and I wanted this job so that I know exactly which wire to cut. I know exactly how to turn that entire data center off. I know exactly which thing I need to chop up with an axe. I know. And we were like, oh, okay. And he goes, look, and if China gets them, then I can't chop it up with an axe. Then it's over there and they're definitely going to protect them. And there's no way if the AI starts doing something crazy that they're going to turn it off. They're going to love it. But if the Meta AI starts doing something weird, and I went, okay, that's a kind of an apocalyptic way to look at it, but fair enough, So, again, I expect, the AI conversation's a bit of a different conversation. I might have to put my Joe Rogan hat on for that one, but the data centers are coming somewhere on the planet. I wish that every county would put in the restrictions that we have so that they can't waste the water. They can't waste the power. They can't do the stuff to neighborhoods that we've seen them do, that they will only go in industrial areas where everyone expects there to be industrial growth. And yet even still to have the limitations that we require dark sky lighting. So their lights can't go up. They have to stay on the property. Now you'll get reflected light, but even local warehouses and stuff Walmart's going to have more light effect than these places. If every county put those in, then every data center that comes to Georgia is going to have to abide by these high standards. But if one county goes, oh, we're just desperate for the money and we'll let you come here for 10 years tax-free, that's where they're going to build. They're going to cross over 75 into Butts County. They're going to go north 1941 to Henry County, which says take in all comers. Please, please, please. You don't have to have tilt-up concrete walls that keep the hum on their property. You don't have to put acoustic dampening walls. You don't have to closed-loop system. No, use all the water you want. They're going to take all comers. And if all the municipalities and all the counties would stand together and say, hey, I know the state is giving you tax incentives, but we don't have to, and here's our standards, then they'll build to those standards. But like we said earlier, people respond to incentives. Corporations respond to incentives. And if Butts County is going to give them 10 years with no taxes, and we're going to tax them $60 million a year starting year one, they're going to go and save $600 million by going to Butts County, which doesn't require all the hoops and bells and whistles that we require. So you're going to get a better, less of a negative impact on the environment. You're going to get a better impact positively on the tax base. With $60 million a year, Spalding County could give a 100% homeowners tax relief, and so essentially homeowners would have no taxes in Spalding County, zero. And yet, the county would still have $35 million extra a year to spend on a new jail and more code enforcement and more animal control and more firemen. And so all the issues that people have, there's potholes. Yeah, because roads are hella expensive, are answered by more tax revenue. Well, where are we going to get it? I'm not going to allow growth to come to solve all these problems if that growth causes more problems. But if I have these rules and they're the highest in the state, and the river keepers come in and go, we want XYZ on top of that, we go, you got it. We're going to put every special condition in that you want, and we hold them to this high standard, then they'll still come, be held to the high standard, and I can still solve these issues. But if there's counties that are like, we'll bend over and let you do whatever you want to us, that's where they're going to go. So even though 3 sites have been approved as far as the zoning goes for them to be built there, I expect maybe 1 to come. I don't expect all 3 of those to ever really be filled.
And then are you seeing these same sort of you talked about power lines a little bit, and there are some going through your county. And also in my area, it's actually been kind of a pleasant benefit that they rushed to put in fiber. Like, I've been wanting fiber for a decade, and now all of a sudden it's like, well, data centers are coming, we need fiber, and it's here. So,
well, for us geeky types, I think it'll be a benefit. Our latency is about to get real great, and so I'm going to get shot in Counter-Strike a lot less because I can, my latency is going to go way up. But I think on the other hand, there's other business opportunities. That latency has become an issue with Wall Street, right? Like, if I can make this trade faster than you can, that zillionth of a second might mean $1 million, might mean 100,000, but if I do it every trade, that adds up. And so a lot of those businesses will come and relocate here as well. On the other hand, I still don't want it in my backyard. I still don't. It needs to be in an industrial area. It's an industry. Put it in the industrial area. The third rezoning that we did for the data center was actually rezoned from heavy industrial. A chemical plant was coming in, and we down zoned it to the light industrial, which is specific for the data centers. So I'd rather have a data center than a heavy chemical plant that could do that didn't have any restrictions. That whole area, the whole lot was allowed to have a heavy chemical plant. Now the data center was restricted so that 30 acres of it that is a wetlands can't be used at all. Whereas the heavy chemical plant, that was allowed. They could have come over there and bulldozed it and dumped their chemicals in it if they wanted to. They had to deal with the EPD, but there was nothing that the locals could do about it. So again, I think there's a way to smartly guide this. I don't think there's a way to stop it. Even if America was able to stop it, China's not going to stop it. It's going to happen. And their power comes from dirty coal plants. Ours comes from clean natural gas at worst. Do they use a ton of power? They use a hell of a lot of power. One data center is going to use more power than almost our entire county combined. But at the same time, again, if they don't build it here, they're going to build it somewhere. So if you can build it here, then you can say, all right, let's do it with the right rules and let's put the right restrictions on it. If China builds it, I mean, China's going to use slave labor to build it. I mean, the stuff that they're doing is crazy.
So what do you think that the need for the new data centers are when it comes to AI? Is it just the natural, AI is 3 years old and we've now grown to a point where we need these data centers? Or is it more forward looking where it's we're going to have, Flock cameras that need AI, and we'll have Flock Nova that ties it all together, Palantir that ties it all together, and all this stuff everywhere, and they will need the AI. So
I do think that Flock and Palantir and all this stuff is going to use AI. Obviously they do. Obviously they're going to, that capability is going to continue to increase. And like we talked about earlier, hopefully they will correct themselves through us attacking their pocketbooks so that it's as less invasive than more invasive. But again, I don't think it's gonna stop. I mean, short of a global EMP and us going back to clay pots banging together on the side of a donkey, it's technology goes up. On the other hand, some of the people that were attacking data centers online were making graphics that showed, data center dumping and all this stuff. And you go, hey man, an AI made that graphic. What do you think the data centers do? I think that more and more people are adopting and using AI for everything and using it as the amazing tool that it is. And I think that capacity is going to grow. And me thinking that isn't the important part. These giant corporations think that that's what's going to happen everywhere. And so even though no AI company has turned a profit ever, in fact, they've lost billions in money every single year, much like Amazon did for the first 20 years it was around, and now it makes $1 zillion. They expect in the future for not only the demand for it, but for the remuneration and the value of it to go up to the point that it's worth spending all these billions now. And so, yes, I think it is, future expansion for a hope for, as the world slowly adopts this. I think the world is going to slowly adopt AI and integrate AI into more and more of our stuff. And I think these corporations are seeing that as well. Now, is there a .com 1990s bubble where this all comes crashing down? There's a part of me that really hopes so. But there's a part of me that kind of goes, is this the invention of the automobile and all of us, farriers and, horse copers going, no, but what am I going to do with my, I make horseshoes. Wait a minute. But we know that civilization not only survived, but, in a lot of ways thrived because of that industrial revolution. And I think this is sort of a second digital revolution. Am I afraid of AI? In a lot of ways, yeah. Yeah. Do I think that AI poses a bigger threat than even nuclear war does? I do. But I know that at some point that switch is going to be flipped. And whoever gets to flip it first is the one that's really getting to stack the dice in one direction or the other. If the United States flips it, then we're going to flip it in the most benevolent way that is possible, right? The chances of a good outcome from AI, if it's in America, are significantly higher than if that AI is in China, right? If they flip it, they're not going to care how many humans die. You know what I'm saying? So,
well, I don't see how it's mutually exclusive though either. Is us having AI going to stop them from doing it themselves? Unless our AI is trained to attack theirs, I don't know. But
I think the first AI that gets off the ground, I think in a lot of ways that's going to sort of set the rules for the rest of them, even if it's inadvertently. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it seems like with the massive expansion, faster than I've ever seen anything built. We needed nuclear power probably before I was born, and now it's more of a priority than ever.
The fact that we haven't gone to nuclear power is absurd to me. Yeah. It's absurd. It's the cleanest way to make power. It's the safest. It's the cheapest. It's the most compact. The idea that we're not using nuclear power for all this stuff is just
But it's like, and also,
Bother.
you know, we wanted fiber years and years and years ago, and now it's like being rushed to be put in. And it
Yeah.
seems like it's less likely that this is going to be consumer AI, so I can make cool pictures, or business AI even, of like, well, we think every business is going to use this. But more like, well, we're going to have real-time video streaming to AI, watching all of these flock cameras at all times. And, you know, drone usage and the side of Waymos and the side of buses and just, you know, total surveillance, it seems like, is the most, you know, the use case I would expect from something being expanded this fast and with this priority. And I get what you're saying about the local council people. Like, their incentive is, well, let me get money for our county. Somebody's going to get these things. It's a mad dash right now, so let's do it and let's do it right. But then, like, downstream, like, what is it going to be used for? And I don't think it's me generating pictures, you know, for this podcast episode.
I agree. But I think that's on us as consumers, like we talked about earlier when we were talking about the cameras, to really come after and say, hey, this is not okay. And anyone who, you know, any politician that disagrees with that gets voted out. Anyone that allows this gets voted out. And to go after the corporations in their pocketbooks and saying, hey, you know, you got hacked, so you owe me money. Oh, no, we're not responsible. The hell you're not. Yeah, you are. Of course you are. And coming after them so that, oh, hey, we're not actually using this data that got hacked, so let's stop collecting this data because we're going to be liable for all that data that we collected. So let's go back to what the flock cameras initially were created to do, which was when you create sort of the APB, the all points bulletin, be on the lookout for this car, you know, the Amber Alert that blows up in our pockets and everyone goes, oh, this is 4 hours away from me. Why did I get an Amber Alert for Tennessee? You know, but now the flock cameras can go, boom, I'm looking for, you know, a silver Ford Focus with this tag, and it goes, here they are, here they are, here they are. So that when there's a drive-by, when there's an Amber Alert, it can go, here it is. But it only looks for it when it's told to. It only flags it when it's told to, as opposed to now they went, hey, we can flip this switch and catch every data about everybody, and now we can catch everybody's phone metadata and sounds and whoa. That's not helping us stop gangbangers from doing drive-bys. Now you're just data mining all of us. That's crazy. So if we can legislatively put the guardrails in, but more importantly, put the teeth in with the courts, just like the hot coffee case, right? You know, when that coffee burned that lady, now there's not an OSHA compliance office that goes in and checks everybody's coffee. Every Starbucks, every restaurant that sells coffee self-regulates their temperature, because the temperature they sell the coffee at, because they know that they're going to be liable if somebody burns themselves on the coffee. So if we can burn flock with the coffee and they go, oh crap, if we do this, we're going to be liable, we should stop doing that. They will. If the cost of doing that is more than the value of what they get. Compare that to the settlements for the criminal and civil cases against Big Pharma. Big Pharma, you know, with these opiates that they knew, much like the tobacco companies, when they were adding nicotine, they knew these were addictive. They knew they were harmful. They knew you could overdose, and they continued to incentivize overuse of them purposefully, knowingly, and criminally. The biggest criminal fines ever leveraged were against the 4 big pharma companies, and it was in the billions. The problem is the profit, not the gross, the net profit that they made on these opiates is in the hundreds of millions. So, okay, I'll pay $10 billion to make $100 billion. That's the cold hard facts of a corporation. So obviously the disincentive to do that again is not strong enough. If they can make $100 billion and Ford Pinto style only have to pay out 10, then the disincentive wasn't strong enough. So we've got to make the disincentive strong enough on Flock that it outweighs the positives. You know, there's multiple of these companies. Let's bankrupt one for doing the wrong thing, and the others go, I don't want to be a dead dog like them. We're going to change. And then at the same time, when a corporation says, hey, our cameras only do this in response and there is no metadata and blah, 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 hey, we need to go to our sheriffs, go to our local law enforcement, go to our local elected officials and say, use that company instead. It's the same contract. You're going to get the same positives, but the society isn't going to get a negative. At the same time, hey, maybe there's not that corporation. Maybe there's not a Flock-like corporation that is only doing this much because, the law enforcement helpful part, because they're seeing all the benefits of all this data collection. Okay, then let's start one. Let's create that company that gives us the positive benefits and does have the white hat on and only use the data the right way and then deletes it or doesn't collect it at all. You see what I'm saying? And then we'll get everyone behind that corporation. Hey, cut ties with Flock, cut ties with Axios, cut ties with the ones that are doing it bad. Use the white hat that is giving you the data on where the location of this, bad guy is, but isn't going to give you the data on, hey, can you tell us where all these protesters are from so we can cut their bank accounts? No, we're not doing that. Did they break the law? Nope. Have a nice day. We force you to. Well, our data is not kept in the United States, so you can't subpoena it. Have a nice day. So there is a way to do it. And if a corporation isn't doing it, then someone should start one and start doing it the right way. And then everyone should get behind that corporation. That's how we as citizens act collectively. We can shout and put up posters all we want. And obviously, again, I would never encourage anyone to go and take a hacksaw or a green laser to these things. That would be irresponsible and clearly against the law. But on a larger scale, the way that we win is through the collective action of incentivizing a corporation to do the right thing. And if none of them will, then starting one that will and getting everyone to back that corporation.
So about 10 years or so ago, there was a report, I want to say maybe ABC, that put out this video that basically showed how the Chinese social credit system worked and how they track everybody's movements. They track everyone on the street through AI, every interaction that you have, your purchases in the grocery store. Of course, we're moving in the direction of cash now, or away from cash. So people's purchases there's records of that. Whenever you go into a Walmart or one of these big box stores, they know everything you look at. There are people that their conjecture is that the data center explosion is based on that, on the desire to set up a similar system here that basically tracks us. And they don't have to necessarily put people in jail. You just now have your access to the bullet train cut off. You just have your access to your children's education.
The report of that actually came out in 1949 in this great book by George Orwell. Okay, we know what that looks like. We know where that lands. And the fact that people in China, much like the people in Iran, much like the people in Gaza, haven't risen up and overthrown their horrible leaders that are doing these horrible things both to them and their neighbors and the rest of the world is shocking to us Americans. But I think that's also because we as Americans, we're founded on these principles of we're not going to put up with that. But as those rights, this is why we fight so hard for the Fourth Amendment and the First Amendment and the Second Amendment. Social credit scores and this kind of stuff would never fly if the country is armed. If the Chinese people all had guns, they wouldn't put up with it. The Iranian people all had guns, they wouldn't put up with it. But they don't. Look at what's happened to some of our Western allies within 10, 20 years of them giving up their guns. England now locks up and puts more people in jail for bad Facebook posts than China does. England? Yep, England. Look at what's going on in Australia. They took their guns and smashed them and said, now you're all safe. And now their biggest enemy is their government. It's wild. So anytime I see these kind of reports, you look at what's going on in Ireland and elsewhere, my comment is always the same. Never let them take your guns. because once they do that, boy, cashless society, social credit scores, Big Brother is quick to follow. But much like this Meta employee who said, yeah, I know how to turn the thing off. I know which wire to cut. I know where to take the axe to. Americans, if they turned on that social credit score tomorrow and said, hey, we're going to use a central bank digital currency, we'd say, no, you're not. Nope. And we've got enough guns to back it up. No, you're not. They would have to take the guns first.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people would. I don't know. I don't know if people would. I would hope so. But I know that a lot of people...
There is the frog in the hot water analogy as well, right? If they do it slowly enough. But that's, we rebelled over a 3-cent tax on tea. And now, close to at least 1/3, if not 2/3 of all of our money is paid in taxes. Yeah, you're right. We're getting slowly boiled. And I hate to take off all the other hats I put on tonight and put on my youth pastor hat and get religious on you for a minute. But I've read the book. And until the very last pages when Jesus comes back, it gets bad. It only gets worse from here until the very, very, very end when Jesus comes back and saves us all. So do I expect things to miraculously get better and everything to go back to where it was in the 50s and we're all Shangri-La? No. Do I expect things to get worse? I do. But it's my job as a citizen. It's my job as an elected official. It's my job as a member of the bar to do everything I can to give my kids the opportunities that I had to have a better life, a better future. But we see that that's reversing. This coming generation will be the first in history to have a less prosperous outcome than the generation before them. And I think that's a trend that's going to continue unless some drastic changes get made. And people ask me all the time, James, what are we going to do? All this horrible stuff is coming. And I tell them the same thing. We're going to do our best. But I've read the book and I believe the book, and I believe it's going to continue to get worse until Jesus comes. And so again, I know that sounds fatalistic, but at the same time, I think it also, in a lot of ways, gives me hope, right? I know that the seas aren't going to boil and that we're all, the humans aren't going to perish off the earth because the book says they're not gonna. There's going to be people here when Jesus comes back. You know what I'm saying? Like how happy their lives are going to be, how free their lives are going to be. You know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of what we're fighting right now, right? I know I have faith, I have a testimony that Jesus is coming back. Again, this might, be the wrong form to share this at, but that gives me the hope that there is hope for humanity, that I know that this ends in a good way. My concern is to put off all the negative stuff that's going to happen between now and Jesus coming back as long as I can, right? So that's probably not the answer that you wanted to hear. It's not happy. It's not, yes, we just check this box and AI goes away. But at the same time, looking back, if I'd have been alive during the Cuban Missile Crisis, hey, we could all die. Man, I don't think we're gonna. I've read the book. It's not a glowing, molten rock when Jesus comes back. You know what I'm saying? Like humans are gonna be here. So I have a lot of faith that the world is certainly going to change. And I think a lot of that is going to be in bad ways. But I also think a lot of good stuff is going to happen, right? How many people in Africa right now don't have access to doctors? And eventually, an AI will be the best doctor on the planet. They're not right now. They're good grief. They recommend that you swallow rocks. But like eventually, once they figure it out, you know what I'm saying? And then everyone in Africa is going to have the same access to medical care that we in the West have. And that would be awesome. How many lives could be saved, right? But at the same time, boy, if we've got some super smart AI tracking everything we do and our cell phones and our thoughts, and they know more about us than we've forgotten, like how dystopian. But again, everything that God can bless us with, Satan can just, turn around and destroy. Planes are amazing. And almost immediately after inventing them, we started using them to fly over each other and drop bombs or run them into buildings and blow stuff up. So, the internet's great about sharing cat memes and pictures of my cute kids and genealogical work and yet most of the internet is pornography. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, anything that God can bless humanity with, we can turn into, or the devil can help us turn into something evil. And I think it's the same with AI. I think there's tons of positives that can come with AI. But much like nuclear power means nuclear bombs, once we learn to split the atom, we can create the cleanest, most efficient, forms of power ever. And we can also blow people up by the millions with it. So it's up to us, right? Two nuclear bombs were used in aggressive wars, to kill people on purpose, and then never again. Do I think that there'll be some use cases where AI is used in a horrible way? Yes, but hopefully we'll then learn from it and go, hey, we should stop this. We don't like this. We love the doctors, absolutely. We love AI running my Roomba so my room is cleaner. But like this overreach, this totalitarian type stuff, this is not good and we need to quit.
Well, that's why
who knows?
That's why Banish Big Brother exists, because we don't want this to happen and we feel a responsibility to stop it. And
that's right. That's right. It's all about bridling, right? It's all about there's a torrent of water going down this mountain. I don't want it to hit this city. So I can't stop the water, but I can channel the water in a good way. I can say, hey, water that comes this way is going to get punished, and the people that put it this way should get punished too. But if we all work together, we can route this in the right way. We can put the bridle on that running horse and we can pull it back. We can slow it down. We can move it in the right direction. Do I think the horse of AI is ever going to get killed? No. Do I think we can cut off the source of water? Short of a global EMP, I don't think so. But at the same time, it should be everyone's duty, and certainly Banish Big Brother is the tip of the spear here in fighting back against the negatives here and preventing this sort of incredible overreach that isn't something of the future. It's happening right now. It's happening in Canada right now. They were freezing people's bank accounts who protested against the government right now in Canada, not Cuba, in Canada. So, this isn't something that might happen in the future. It's happening right now. Is the Floccaganda camera system being overused and used for nefarious reasons? Yeah, they're arresting police officers who have access to this for using it in nefarious means. We shouldn't put up with it. So that's what Banish Big Brother is all about, is how do we combat this and how do we coordinate our response to combating this, right? We can all scream individually and they're going to ignore us all individually. But if we all scream together as one and fight as a unit, then they can't ignore us.
All right. Well, let's wrap up on that. This has been our longest episode yet, and I like it. But I can hear
you get us attorneys talking, man, and we'll just talk all night.
What's that?
You get us attorneys talking, man, and we'll talk all night.
Well, I need to get off here and go relieve my wife. The baby apparently has not settled at all while I've been doing this. So,
congrats on the new baby, by the way.
Thank you. Almost a year old now. So
that's awesome.
So let me just throw it over to Elizabeth for one more, because I know we talked a lot during this. And any last words? Anything to wrap up on, Elizabeth?
Well, no. Thank you. Thank you for coming and talking with us this evening. Thank you for representing us at Dragon Con. We're looking forward to that. And yes, we anybody that's interested in this issue, like Zach said, we're more than just a podcast. We want to help people. We want to help people organize in their communities. The abuse that's happening with surveillance, it's unacceptable. And yeah, we need to get together. It requires action.
Absolutely.
And then, so here you see you're on the Dragon Con website. I don't think that's anything new. You've been there for years. But this year's is September 3rd through 7th. So about 40-ish days.
42 days left. You remind me of how not finished my cosplay is, man. Come on. I'm behind. Oh crap. And between then and now is 9 days in Canada at Bickelline. Good grief. I'm never going to finish my cosplay.
Well, and just update on Banish Big Brother stuff real quick. So Elizabeth has created a zine, which people can go and check out. They can print it off, fold it, distribute it themselves. So this is the first one called Why You Should Care About Surveillance. And let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 8-page zine. Is that right?
That is correct.
And there we go. And there's instructions on how to fold it. You just click it, print that off, and go to town distributing those. And that's on our website, banishbigbrother.com, under Take Action. And then also, Elizabeth put out a blog post. So I don't know why it's being so slow. The data centers haven't kicked in yet over here. So
they know this is the one against them, so they're slowing us down on purpose.
So we talked about this briefly on the last episode, the idea of, is surveillance going to replace police eventually? And, maybe more police should be involved in this cause of making sure it's used for good reasons and not the bad reasons, because we can see a future where real-time crime centers are operated from India or something, and your town doesn't need them, and they don't need as many cops on patrol either, because they're using robot dogs operated from a call center somewhere. And
hey, if we've got cameras, we don't need crosswalks anymore.
Yep, exactly. So all of that and more in her article. It's really good. We now have Elizabeth posting on Banish Big Brother rather than places like that were getting picked up by Zero Hedge and seen by millions. So we're not quite there yet, but it actually is read by a lot of people, and I'm glad that we exclusively have Elizabeth writing for us. So
more every day.
Yep. So check that out, and if anybody does want to support Banish Big Brother, all the stuff that Elizabeth's doing, this podcast, even the things James is talking about, we try to help promote anything that he's doing as well and get involved where we can. You can go and donate on the website on banishbigbrother.com/donate, and we really appreciate that. There's also ways to get involved, like creating a chapter in your local town, your community. We have a speakers bureau that includes me, James, Elizabeth, and some others. So John Padfield is out there speaking a lot right now, so he's another one that is on our board, and we're kind of partnered with, as well as Michael Meharry down in Florida. And that's about it. Just go check it out, and I don't know. That's it. Anything else, Elizabeth or James?
And buy merch.
Oh yeah,
that's right. That's right. It is political. It's not partisan. Okay, anyone from both sides can get involved, and we would expect anyone with two thinking brain cells they can rub together to understand the dangers here and want to get involved, no matter what political party they're in. So, even if you don't want to bring up politics around the Thanksgiving table, you can certainly bring up this, because everyone should be in agreement that they don't want what's going on in China to be here in America.
Yeah,
that's right.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for listening, and we will see you next time. Bye.
We representing peeps that don't play us on the air, and we're talking in the